Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here today. My name is Leah Bachani, and as a nutritionist, I have to say I've been kind of stalking this woman you see right before you on Instagram because she's got so much valuable information. I want to give her the proper introduction, but first, really quick, Brie, thank you for being here.
Thanks
So,
for having me.
this woman standing right in front of you is Brie Wieselman, and she is a licensed primary care provider and CEO of the Reverse Age Method, a groundbreaking anti-aging program for women over 35 who want to get and stay lean, visibly rewind skin appearance, reclaim all-day energy and brain power, and stop perimenopausal hormone symptoms in their tracks. Yes, please. For the past 14 years, she has paved the way for quality functional care, working with thousands of clients across the globe, from Dubai to California to Mozambique to Japan, empowering them with a personalized map for understanding and transforming their health. Besides being an expert in hormone balance and fertility optimization, she specializes in helping people heal digestive problems such as IBS, ulcerative colitis, parasitic infections, candida overgrowth, and SIBO to rebuild a bulletproof microbiome. Love that. She enjoys teaching and speaking and regularly appears on various podcast summits, live events, and documentaries as an expert on the topics of perimenopause, anti-aging, and microbiome wellness, which is why I'm so happy you are here today. Welcome, Brie.
Thank you. It's an honor. I'm really glad to get to meet you and all these ladies.
Yay! So at this point, we probably have thousands of women watching this. And today we're going to talk about weight loss over 40, why what used to work doesn't work anymore. And before we jump in, though, I kind of wanted to touch on a topic that hit me this week. I was talking with a woman, and she's like, why is there so much focus on weight loss for women over 40? We're held to such high standards. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, I can see why you see it that way, but in reality, there's so much that's in weight, like the aspect of weight loss. So first of all, over 40, many of us gain weight all of a sudden from nowhere. And with that weight gain, it affects our confidence, it affects our self-esteem, it affects our mobility, sometimes, our joint health, and also so many other systems in our body. When we carry more weight, it puts us at a higher risk for. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that really quick because it was weighing on my heart. I'm like, it's not just about weight loss, it's about optimizing your health and getting you in the body that you feel amazing in and you feel vibrant and healthy. And so, Brie, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah. God, I'm so glad you led with that because I do actually do a lot of pushback on that when I post things online that include measures of weight or skin or like how we look, like things that we might consider vanity. And the truth is, we're served up this double-sided message by society where it's like, here's all, you shouldn't care about that. That's just vanity. What about your health? Am I healthy? Which to your point is like, yeah, this isn't just about like how I look and do I fit this model of this artificial standard. It's about how are we aging in our cells and our tissues. And for me, it's about how do we feel? What women care about is like, what is the experience I'm going to have? And for me, like my secret mission is that all women should be oriented towards pleasure as their compass in their bodies. And pleasure can look like actually physical pleasure. It can look like beauty. It can look like fulfilling your purpose, like any of those things. But the other side of that story we're doing is like, don't care about how you look, but also you should look like this. So the other part that I want to validate is that I'm not gonna lie, like I like to still fit my wardrobe from 5 and 10 years ago, parts of it, maybe some of it I'm updating. But like I still want to be able to put those jeans on. I don't want to buy into this thing that I'm just supposed to accept that now I have to get this other full size of clothing or whatever it is. And bottom line is even if I am a size 20 or so, it's not about the number. It's about I want to be able to like throw on clothes and like walk out the door and feel like I look cute. And you know what? That's dishonest. And I think it's okay and we should normalize that is all right to feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of those things manifest,
I
right?
mean, like it's just, we're not advocating for you to get skinny. In fact, sometimes skinny isn't healthy. Like, just feel great about your body and be able to move. My biggest thing is like, people need to move for a long time, like as long as you live, you need to be able to move your body. and feel okay moving your body. So
Yes.
the big part. So let's dive into it. And when we're talking about weight loss, we're talking about optimizing your health. So let's start at the beginning. Well, let's start at the beginning of what happens when you cross over 40. For most people, that's kind of the average age where some of this hormonal shift begins. We feel like our metabolism is like stopping all of a sudden. Let's start there and talk about that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I can't tell you how many women lead with whatever else is going on for them symptom wise. The piece about the weight looks like, you know, I've always kind of eaten clean or healthy. I've worked out and like up until now, what I did always kind of worked. Like I felt kind of good and that felt I looked good. So still getting the same amount of exercise and I'm still basically eating the same things. And now it's not working. Like why has my weight crept up 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds in the last X years? So I hear this day in and day out. And what happens is that women, do like their best efforts to go out there into this like information jungle and find out like what other people are saying works. And so they tried keto and they've done intermittent fasting and they've like started doing HIIT workouts or maybe they're not plant-based. They are just grasping for like, hey, this sounds like it makes sense. And then ultimately what we land on is like this advice that we know is broken, that we all know this isn't the right way, like the eat less, exercise more equation. We know that we're all pretty hip to that now, but we end up doing it anyway. And it just misses the mark, right? And so if my heart like goes out to everybody who's on that, if that sounds familiar, like, okay, me too, I did that. I designed this program that I have now because it was the thing that was missing, that was like the map for how we go through menopause and perimenopause that no one had given me. And I was like, well, where's the manual, guys? Like there's like over like 3 million, 4 million people who are going through this in the next 10, 20 years. Like, how come we don't have a guide? So I want to break this down. I'm so excited. So basically, perimenopause, this term perimenopause, it lasts like 10 to 15 years prior to our actual menopause, which is when we stop dating period. So here's the thing, guys, it can start as early as like your 30s. So I'm seeing women clinically who are starting perimenopause at like age 34. Well, 32 even, and that has to do with environment and other things. But realistically, I would say anytime age 35 plus, you might be in the beginning stage of perimenopause. And by age 40, you are definitely in perimenopause, in early perimenopause, if not later. And where you are in that timeline really is genetically influenced and just your body, your uniqueness, plus whatever other health factors you have going on. So there's 4 basic kind of stages to the hormone shifts that define perimenopause. And I want to keep those high level, but basically those 4 are: the first thing that happens is we have our progesterone start to decline because we're ovulating less. And the ovulating less, that is healthy, normal, and appropriate. That's what's supposed to happen. So when we don't ovulate, we're going to make less progesterone as a result. I'm not going to get into detail about that here in the interest of time, but basically the first stage is characterized by lower progesterone relative to about the same amount of estrogen, which can look like estrogen dominance. I'll talk about that in a moment. Then the second stage is kind of our estrogen starts to go on a roller coaster ride. High, low, high, low, high, low, but the progesterone is still going. Phase 3 is when our estrogen finally starts to decline, and now both of the hormones are getting low. And stage 4 is after menopause. We've stopped dating. Progesterone and estrogen naturally will be low, and our testosterone gets a little bit higher relative to those other two. So we now have this phase defined by what we would call testosterone dominance, even though that hormone isn't necessarily elevating, but it's higher relative to these two now getting low. Okay, you don't have to remember all that, but I'm going to talk about like why that's important. So the very first phase, that progesterone decline, how does that show up? Because I'm going to tell you that most women have no idea this is happening. So here's what it looks like. It looks like lower bandwidth. It looks like lower resilience to stress triggers. It looks like snapping at your kids and going, wow, that didn't used to trigger me. It looks like feeling overwhelmed more easily. It looks like being just a little bit more irritable. Then what happens is that progesterone and estrogen love to exist in relativity to each other. So they're happy together when they're in balance in this harmonious ratio. And so this can also show up as classic estrogen dominance symptoms. Estrogen dominance can be when you actually have high circulating levels of estrogen, but it can also be a normal level of circulating estrogen with not enough progesterone to meet it. So what that can look like is breast tenderness or swelling, especially before your period, a worsening of your normal PMS, presentation, acne that hasn't been around through treatment all of a sudden is like, hey, I'm here. Headaches. So headaches, migraines, or more frequency or intensity of those. Water weight gain, a harder time losing fat, or a tendency to gain belly fat. And sometimes the tendency to gain belly fat, here's the thing, is it'll be just this like slight thickening at the waist. Doesn't really look like, I know my belly's huge. It can just look like, hey, I'm kind of roughly the same, but what I've noticed is like, I used to go in more, and now I'm starting to get kind of thicker in the middle. Okay. And then the other way this shows up, here's the number 2 way this shows up is sleep disturbance. I'm going to talk about that like in depth. But basically what happens is that progesterone is our fat-burning anti-water retention hormone, and it also promotes GABA uptake in the brain. GABA is our calming neurotransmitter. When we buy enough GABA, we feel to chill, cool, calm, collected, things roll off our back, and we feel like we're living in our skin. When we turn off GABA, we can tend towards anxiety or just tension or like also have a hard time falling asleep. So we've got this like brain effect with progesterone, but then we've got this fat burning anti-water retention aspect. And so for women, both estrogen and progesterone levels can impact how we maintain blood sugar levels. So changes in these female hormones can impact how the food we eat impact our blood sugar. Let me kind of repeat that. Basically, with different levels of estrogen and progesterone, that same like part of a sweet potato that you eat can hit different in terms of the impact that it has glycemically. And this whole phenomena can actually contribute to insulin resistance. Now, insulin is a hormone that goes up when we eat carbohydrate foods to help put carb that we're not going to use right then for our muscles or our brain into storage to use for later. So insulin equals our fat storage hormone. Basically, when insulin is higher, we put on fat. And us in perimenopause tends to be belly fat. So then what happens also with regard to progesterone is that it has an anti-androgen effect. So they balance each other. Like androgen would be like testosterone and DHA. So progesterone can actually also be highly towards this shift that naturally happens towards insulin resistance of higher insulin levels, because testosterone, when it gets high relative to estrogen and progesterone, which is that last phase of menopause, perimenopause, that will stimulate the production of more insulin. And so higher circulating insulin is one driver of insulin resistance. And this is why there's such a high risk for developing prediabetes or diabetes as we get into menopause in the perimenopausal one after. And so as estrogen and progesterone naturally decrease, it can lead to that state of relative testosterone dominance, which pushes into insulin resistance, even if we don't change our diet and exercise that we're working before. So again, when these progesterone levels drop in this perimenopausal windows, that anti-androgen effect is lost. And this is by hormone specialists like myself who consider progesterone to be a weight loss hormone. And one thing that's really important that I say is this is not true of progestin, which is the form of it's the hormone that's in a lot of birth controls. And they say that it's a progesterone and estrogen combo or something, but what they really mean is progestin. And those act a lot of testosterone in the body, and so they can actually have the opposite effect. So during this time, being on birth control can actually drive this whole equation.
Wow. You said a lot in there. And so I think we're going to have to go rewind and listen to that again.
It's a lot.
But no, it's great. And I think that it's really important for us to understand as women, like, what is going on with these changes and how could it be affecting us? Now, what I thought was really interesting is that the initial stages of the progesterone, Laura, you mentioned a bunch of symptoms. And I think probably every woman listening right now is probably like, either I'm going through that or I've been through that and I totally remember that. And then you mentioned sleep dysregulation. And I want to go back to that and really touch on that a little bit more, because I know that has a huge impact on our overall health. So can we go back to that for a second?
Yeah, I definitely want to go more into that because it's not just a brief mention. This is huge. So sleep disturbance, this could look like we're having a hard time falling asleep. It can also look like waking up in the middle of the night, starting to wake more and just not getting that deeper quality of sleep. So what we know is that lack of adequate sleep in terms of numbers of hours or quality of sleep increases our hunger the next day, and it also will push us to choose less optimal choices. So we're more likely to grab quick carb or sugary foods when we have less sleep, these studies. And so having that Inadequate sleep makes it biological diverter to lose body fat. Our body basically interprets that as like something's wrong, you're in danger. There's a reason you're not sleeping as well. We need to hold on to all our resources and conserve because there might not be enough food around or you might be on the run. So you need to hold on to that fat because you might need it for energy. It increases hunger and cravings for carb-based foods, and then it also inhibits muscle gain, no matter like what we're doing with our workouts. So simply sleeping less can drive weight gain through those mechanisms, and it also lowers our ability to regulate glucose levels. So it makes our glucose insulin equation just less efficient. So there was a study that looked at 150,000 women, and those who had night sweats and hot flashes for a longer period of time during menopause, so they therefore had more disrupted sleep. They also had a much higher risk of developing diabetes, almost 20% higher. No, that study is a little bit tricky. You can conclude that like sleep disruption was driving the diabetes, but you can also correlate, like there could also be other things going on because we know that hot flashes and night sweats are worse in women who have less optimal glucose control and higher insulin levels. Balancing blood sugar is essential when you're trying to deal with that symptom. But for the purposes of weight loss, what we know is all of those things correlate. Lower sleep, like less quality of sleep, more night flashes and hot sweats when people get those, and weight gain or tendency to creep towards diabetes.
Oh, it sounds like sleep is really important. That, like, if you were to maybe, if a woman was asking, like, where do I start? It sounds like sleep might be one of the first steps to really hone in on managing and optimizing the sleep.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, like, there's so many ways to do that, but for sure, dialing in our sleep hygiene and all the things we do, the choices we make to really help. And then, of course, there's a discussion about like how we use all those other things you just talked about, blood sugar and the hormones and all that to really kind of dial that in. But yeah, step one is make sure we're sleeping.
Okay, so that's a good first step. Now, I want to circle back now to exercise. As many of us are thinking, I've worked out my whole life, but what I'm doing right now isn't working like it used to work. So what do we do?
Yes, yes, yes. So what I find is that in this like decade, I'll have to say to it, it's really like 35 to 55 or 40 to 60, but there's two things that happen. One is that we may tend to become less active than we were in our 20s and 30s. That's not true for every woman, but some women will just tend to become less active, some adults in general, not just women. So then there's that. But the other thing is a lot of women will think that all of a sudden they need to do more cardio or do a bunch of like some really high intensity cardio stuff. Now, sometimes we just gotta get moving. So it's never bad to adopt some kind of movement because, like you said, it's like, well, move it or lose it. We gotta stay moving as long as we're alive in some form that's appropriate, right, for promotion of health and longevity. But when we do things like endurance cardio or more or longer cardio, or when we start to go towards high intensity workouts, what can happen is that it can actually kind of shoot ourselves hypothetically in the hormonal foot because it'll drive cortisol, and that can drive central abdominal weight gain, belly fat gain, as well as when our cortisol goes up, there's this reciprocal relationship where the body makes less progesterone. That's already happening now. And so that worsens that estrogen dominant, insulin resistance, fat gain cascade. So what I'll see is a lot of women doing more cardio going like, why am I not losing weight? This used to help. Well, why am I actually gaining weight? This used to help, right? So that's step one. So what do we do? So what our body is asking for now that looks different than maybe what we did in our 20s and 30s, and kudos to those of you who are already doing this, is we need to shift the focus to putting on as much lean muscle as possible in this decade or so. And then we need to maintain it for the rest of our life. So muscle has the most insulin receptors. So it helps us use any of the glucose that we eat. And it also contains the most mitochondria, because it needs a ton of energy to work. And mitochondria, if you go back to like high school biology, are the powerhouse of the cell where we generate cellular energy. So mitochondria, having lots of them and having them function well, that is the fountain of youth. Basically, we are as old as our mitochondria work. So when we add lean muscle, that is the number one way to rev our metabolism promote well span and play span, which I think are more important than the numbers in your lifespan. And we maintain functionality and the ability to have fun and to play in our bodies and to feel it and to prevent disease and stay lean because we're burning our body's going, oh yeah, you need to be able to burn this stuff to keep going. And they've also like muscle mass in like when you look at like longevity medicine, the aging has direct correlations with like all good stuff. So like increased brain function, increased cognition, longevity, lower rates of chronic disease and things that and increased disease survival. It's anything around cancer, right? Like most people die out in cancer. It's called cachexia, which is literally muscle loss, muscle wasting. So all of those things are the fruit just by the action of staying on muscle. So what I just wanted to do is to if they're not familiar with how to do this, which a lot of us aren't necessarily, to get with a trainer who's going to help you lift heavy things and like progressively challenge the muscle. So while I was like a Pilates instructor and I left our class for years and I'm a dancer, I still love all those things. And I think those are great components of a well-rounded program. But to really do this, we just need to be lifting heavy stuff. Now, if you never lifted any weight in your life, you're not going to like go pick up an 80-pound weight and go do something. Like, please do not hear that from what I'm saying. But what you do want to do is work towards it in a structured way, usually with somebody helping you get started safely.
It's stuff funny you say that, and there's no way you could have possibly known this, but we had an expert, and for those of you watching, if you haven't heard his talk, his name is Jordan Lips, and he talks exactly about what you just said, Brie, about like having to lift heavier weights and not doing it in this frantic, stressed out way. And so go back and listen to that. He's also giving a free gift to get people started. So this is so perfect that you're saying this because it ties in so perfectly with where we're going. And then also there's another expert that talked about biohacking at the cellular level and the mitochondria. So I love it that this is all tying together. So perfect.
Okay.
Plan that, but basically restated what he stated. And so all the women watching are hearing it again, which is really good for us to hear it over and over and kind of take that in and see what we can do about it. Now, I know that we could probably spend 2 days of a summit talking about gut health, if not more, but I know it's so important. So give us your 2 cents on gut health over for you, if you can, in less than 2 days.
We're going through, these are like the pillars. Like, these are just the pillars that you can't, one thing, I just want to like, I'm going to answer that question. But one thing that happens is like, I'll have women interested in work with me kind of say like, hey, I saw you have me on, I think I need some hormone replacement. I've been having this, and this, and this, and my weight, and other things too. And I'll say, yes, and so something that's really important is that meeting along with like hormone augmentation, hormone replacement, and also not everybody has to do that. But when we're working with our hormones in any way, whether it's like I'm taking these herbs that are, say estrogens, or I'm doing hormone augmentation, if that's the only thing you do to try to shift the symptoms you're seeing that you want to look different, you are maybe setting yourself up to fail. And I hate to sound negative, but what I'm saying is that this is everybody. So these things I'm talking about, the things we're talking about, the sleep, the relativity of hormone balance, taking a look at blood sugar control and how we can add to what our hormones are influencing with our nutritional choices, taking a look at how we work out and move our bodies, back health, detoxification. It's not an either or. It's not like when I talk about these things here or in a webinar, it's not that you come to this and say, oh, I think I'm the hormone type. Or like suddenly going like, oh, I think detox is my issue. When they say that, they're like, well, which do you think it is? And I say, yes. The answer is yes, meaning by the time we're in our 40s, we have all of these. This is all of them at once. And yes, all of these things are impacting you. And that is why we cannot even work towards hormone balance without addressing like gut and detox. So gut health, the role it plays real succinctly is that if our gut is inflamed, it's a source of inflammation and a source of stress in the body. And so when we have, and this could be from eating foods we don't know are a mismatch for us that are stimulating inflammation. It could look like dysbiosis, which is basically having those you don't want, like parasites, bad bacteria, or overgrowth of certain bacteria, yeast or fungi, so like candida, chronic viral load, or lack of good bacteria. can actually be part of that too. That equals inability to lose fat and makes us move towards fat storage. There's a lot of other things it does too, like disrupt how we process our hormones. But for this talk is about, it will shift into a more fat dominant metabolism. And then here's an example. Antibiotics, a lot of people don't know this. In the cattle industry, so in the like factory farm of meat, antibiotics are used in cattle to fatten them up. The same holds true in humans and in adults, and this is a result of the resulting dysbiosis. The dysbiosis that results from giving some antibiotics makes them fatter. We are not told that when we're giving an antibiotic for this kind of infection or the UTI or whatever. Most people don't have obvious signs of this dysbiosis. There are some people who will say, I have IBS or I have, some gut-focused thing. But you can have little to no symptoms, and there can be inflammation happening in the gut, kind of like apps running in the background, taking up bandwidth on your device, and we haven't swiped up on them because we don't even know they're there running. And that will do a couple things. One, it will stimulate cortisol to be higher because of that ongoing inflammation. And that makes us resistant to fat loss. There's nothing like high cortisol to stop fat loss before it starts. And it will also increase belly fat. And I can fold many times of them testing and just helps them clear like a couple pathogens in their gut, and their sugar cravings and appetite normalized. They dropped, 5 to 10 or more pounds just from that stuff. Just from that thing data. So it's really important to take a look at the role of that.
Absolutely. I'm sure also your liver takes a role in that, your detoxification. I mean, it's all intertwined, right, Brie?
Yeah, it is. I mean, like we were saying, by the time we live 40 years, our liver needs support. So this can be for us, we're all victim each of the environmental exposure. That's just a slightly scary fact. There are chemicals. So even if we're drinking like filtered water and we're eating organic food and we're, even if you can do all those things, just the air we breathe, just the things we put on our body, the things we're exposed to, there are toxins there. They're also like in the situation you were just talking about, all those dysbiotic bacteria or pathogens in the gut, they make toxins. They have metabolic byproducts that are inflammatory and toxic to us, and our liver has to clear those too. So basically what happens is there's this, so the liver, it's kind of like too much paperwork piling up on the desk of the liver, and we're backlogged, and the liver is overwhelmed. And then when that happens, there's a number of things that happen. So one is we can't properly metabolize our hormones. This can lead to menopausal symptoms and like higher cancer risk and things like that, because we're then oxidizing stuff that can lead to DNA changes. You can also lead to hormone buildup and symptoms in menopause. They make us block our best efforts to get lean. Because there's this thing in postmodernism, and I wish I knew who to credit this to, but it's like the solution to pollution is evolution. It's been said for decades. Yeah, you heard that one? So it's kind of like what our body doesn't want to harm us. Like we have sensitive tissue, like cardiovascular tissue or neurologic tissue, subject to these toxins. So we shove them in somewhere that's a little bit more inert, namely fat. And then we use this fat as storage lockers to like put those toxins in. And then we kind of don't want to like dump that stuff back in circulation. So we keep with that, no place to store it, right? So bottom line is we need our liver to be working well to detoxify those things, but also in order to, it's the main location where we convert fat back into blood sugar or glucose to be burned when we need it. So in order to stay metabolically flexible, our liver's got to be working efficiently. Like that, and work with women in, my programs and all the women I work with to do, programs of detoxification in a specific sequence relative to this that might clean up the gut. And it's really important that you do that in the right way, because like a lot of people will think that like, oh, I'm going to do this juice fast, or I'm going to do this cleanse, I'm going to fast, that's a liver cleanse. And the thing is like you and I know, I see you shaking your head and you're like, oh girl, like, I know. Don't do it. But the number one thing our liver needs, in order to complete detoxification, is amino acids, more of them than we usually get. Amino acids are from protein. In order to detox,
Not from a juice cleanse.
from a juice cleanse, there's no protein. You need so much protein. So yeah, get that chlorophyll, get those greens, get the blueberries, get all the stuff, and all the antioxidants. Yeah, but like make sure you're hitting those protein goals, or you're just, messing with your detox.
Absolutely. And I know like these topics we're touching on, exercise, gut health, liver/detox, like we could literally spend hours and hours, days and days, probably even weeks and weeks discussing. So I'm glad that you're giving kind of a 30K overview for everyone watching here, because it highlights the importance of these systems and how they're all connected. And also highlights how we need to love on each of these systems and address each of these, areas of concern. So I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about diet. We kind of touched on the protein and the importance of it. I think almost every expert has said the importance of protein. So I'm really glad you're also saying that. All the women right now are hearing protein, protein, protein. Couldn't make my nutrition heart happier.
I
So
love,
yeah, so let's just
yeah.
take a brief overview of that area too.
Let's keep it brief because I know that, you guys are all hearing this message over and over again, and this is great because if that's the number one thing you take away from this, just that to you just to maintain your life. So, to support, so our protein needs go radically up, not down as we age. Our carbohydrate needs as we get older go radically down, not up. We can look at this evolutionarily. People in hunter-gatherer societies that still kind of live that lifestyle, naturally, the women, as they hit their menopause and menopausal years, they naturally shift to a diet that is higher in carbs and lower in starches. And they save the starches to get to the women who are in their reproductive years because it's a calorie-heavy requirement of life. So, to support muscle growth and maintain and prevent muscle loss, and to stabilize glucose and insulin, and from our liver detox, and a whole bunch of other things, we need a lot of protein, more than people think. And she always remembers that I go for 1 gram of dietary protein per pound of target body weight per day. That's a rough estimate, somewhere in that zone. That means if you're like aiming to be 130 pounds, and I'm not saying that, just let's throw that out there. Like if you're 5'3" or something, then you're going to want to hit around 130 grams of protein a day, give or take. So a lot of people trying to lose weight will shift towards plant-based diets. And what happens is that I think everybody should be eating a lot of plants. It doesn't matter what else you're eating. Eat a lot of plants, period, full stop. Okay. And if you're trying to get all your nutrients from plants, it's not that it's impossible. It is real hard. It's real hard to get adequate protein while not overloading your body on carbs on a plant-based diet. I have very rarely seen that done well. And the women who I've seen do it well happen to come in with genetics that maybe set them up better to do that. And they have a higher carb tolerance, and they were usually real lean their whole lives to begin with and had a hard time keeping weight on. So if your goal is to lose weight, what I'm going to tell you with all of my heart is that most likely a plant-based diet is probably not going to get you there. You could prove me wrong. There are people with that. But because we need lower carbs and starches, we need to add calories somewhere else. And so the more metabolically stimulating glucose-regulating form is protein and some healthy fats. So that's kind of the basic gist of where I go with people. And, the thing is that we've also have to think about, look now, someone says about calories. So caloric meat. We don't want to drop our calories too low. There's a million reasons why, but basically if we do that for a long period of time, we're stressing our body and we're probably not getting enough nutrients and for all the other physiological functions that we need them for. And so it is helpful to have someone help you figure this out and create an actual plan. Because the other thing I want to say is that there is a diet aimed for reducing, meaning when you have a goal of getting like your weight down or your body composition shifted, more muscle, less fat, please. And that is a reduction diet, but there's also a maintenance diet, and that needs to look different. So basically there's a stage 2 that happens like, what happens when I hit my goals? How do I maintain that? And how do I shift into this other place? So you've got to have this, and then you have to figure out, so overall caloric need, not too restricted, but not excess. You need, a modular plan that's sustainable and works while you're like busy cooking dinner for the kids or running to the office in traffic or whatever it is. And also it has to include what I call like excursions. I really don't like way of saying what to cheat, but that's what we're talking about, is that if your plan doesn't have built-in flexibility while you're in the reduction phase to kind of like go off plan, you're not going to stick with it and you're going to feel like you're a failure, even though you're not. And it needs to have those things, and there's actually even metabolic reasons why we should do that too that help. When it's kind of planned in, what we do most of the time is what gets us the results, right? And so it's like what we do every day on rinse and repeat, that is what moves the needle on the dial.
I love that. I have a 90-10 rule, whereas 90% of the food fuels your body and 10% fuels your soul. And sometimes it's different for everyone what that 10% is, but it usually keeps people on track when they do that.
I have so much, yes. Like last year, a year and a half ago, I had gone for IVF and had a kid at age 40, and breastfed 3 years, which didn't help my weight loss. The moment it does, but that's not how the insulin works in my body with regard to that. And so, I was like ordinarily like maybe 15 to 20 pounds up from where I kind of like always wanted, was most of my life. So I, applied all this stuff to get down there. But for me, it's like, so what I do for fun is like when I'm not doing this with people or working with clients or being a mom for my toddler, I go out dancing. I go social dancing. I like Cuban salsa right now is my thing. And I've done a lot of other dances in the past. But so we'll have these things where like last time I got on a kick where I live in Portland and there's like the best Thai food is this little cart. It's a cart run by this family in Thailand that is like behind a strip club. And like you wouldn't know it was there unless you know. But if you know, you know. And it is the best Thai food in town. I will fight me. But like
I
so
want to. I want to be taken there next time I'm in town. I want to look you up. We're gonna go.
so so anyway, we would go dancing and then I'd be like, okay, my boyfriend and I were like gonna go to this Thai place. And I'm like, I love the family. And so like, yeah, so that was like my thing was like I would go eat Thai food and not worry if there was like a little bit of sugar in the curry that I like, or, a little bit of rice that I'm eating with the fat, whatever it was. But it was just I'm like, I'm still gonna enjoy this. And it was so good. So and it's fine. It all still worked. But that was mine.
I mean, everyone needs those little Thai cars or something like that in their life. I
Right.
still stand by the 90-10 rule. It works.
It works.
Okay, let's wrap all this up.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about a lot of complicated things. We've learned our system is incredibly complicated. Is it complicated putting it into action?
Yeah. So the biological look that you want to say is the thing you're bringing that up is like, yeah, when you look at this physiology, we can leave with this message of like paralysis, right? Like, I'm overwhelmed now. How am I going to do those things? And the truth is that doing these things in action is actually really simple. Like, when you have a plan, like a proven plan, and the right support and accountability, that's what women need to do this because for me, I use lab work and then personalization and putting this into a systematic, sequential, sophisticated sequence. That's like, I'm going to take action on this. There's a beginning and an end. I'm going to do this, there's a beginning and an end. And we're weaving that into the lifestyle stuff. Then to get people involved. And then you have someone walking you through it. It's just like, okay, boom, I'm just doing this. I think where we get stuck saying I do is when I'm looking out there at all the options and trying to figure it out on my own and then trying to stick with it and kind of like partway in going like, is this working? Is this the thing I should be doing? Maybe I should rethink this and go a different direction. Right? Have you done that? I definitely have.
Absolutely. I mean, even coaches need coaches.
Oh yeah.
Even I've got someone telling me what I should be doing in the health and wellness sector.
Same. We can't all do it all our own. So anyway, that's all it is. So it's actually pretty simple. And I do have a master class that people could check out. It kind of fits like a little bit, it expands on some of these sections in kind of like what are all the things we cover and how do I do that with women if people are interested to learn more about that. So
that's so generous of you. And so ladies watching, please go back to the email that brought you here. There's another link that'll bring you to Brie's free masterclass, which is her reverse age method. And it's going to really dive into all the topics we just talked about and give you a great starting point. Information empowers you. And as we've discussed with many other experts too, like this is the time in your life, whether you're approaching 40 or you're well into your 50s, 60s, 70s, but it's time to put yourself first. We've often put everyone else first. And then we're kind of like, eating the scraps, so to speak. It's time to put yourself first and advocate for your own health, empower yourself with knowledge. And we could do this. We can live a long, vibrant, healthy life. We just got to do a little bit of work and we'll get there. But it's worth it. So worth it. Thank you, Brie. Thank you so much. You've really dropped like thousands of golden nuggets on this conversation, on this topic. And I think I'm speaking for everyone watching that it's really a gift you've given us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is really fun.